and they only make it harder to secure a future of Palestinian-led Gaza, with Hamas no longer in control and with terrorist groups no longer able to threaten Israel's security.
If you really care about the lives lost here, then you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
Jackson, Mississippi, to be exact. It's been revealed 215 bodies were buried in unmarked graves behind a state jail in Jackson, of course. Attorney Ben Crump is now calling for an investigation.
Since October 7, Israel has employed a well-orchestrated PR campaign to change narratives it dislikes, spread false information, and drum up support for its decades-long occupation of Palestinian territories and its brutal onslaught on blockaded Gaza.
Filipinos living in Gaza are now worried for their safety. 70 Pinoys are now wanting to evacuate out of Gaza the soonest.
There are no Filipinos asking for a repatriation so far from Israel. However, we have from Gaza
a constitutional obligation to safely evacuate Americans. The State Department says more than 400 have been evacuated so far. But a month into the war, an unknown number of Americans remain to bring Americans back from Gaza. They're suing the U.S. State and Defense Departments, accusing them of failing to uphold a constitutional obligation to safely evacuate.
After 1,600 years in the Holy Land, the future for Armenians looks bleak, not because of immigration or a low birth rate, but rather because of a real estate deal.
In the future, the state of Israel have to control on the entire area from the river to the sea.
That was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu making clear that Israel...
People saying from the river to the sea. On the Palestinian side, do I hear condemnation of Netanyahu on that? Forget Netanyahu. It's easy to say, well, he's unpopular in Israel. Do I hear condemnation of the government of Israel?
The US State Department pushed for the formation of a Palestinian state on Thursday. Spokesperson Matthew Miller said Israel had an opportunity right now as countries in the region are ready to provide security assurances to Tel Aviv.
We do believe that this conflict is a little over 1,200 left, which is a higher number than we had when we announced it last week. One of the things that happens is we continue to identify either additional American citizens or American citizens or permanent residents who have additional families.
But I hope that people will feel the weight of responsibility that they have. And I'm talking about not just Western government, many churches, they have enabled what is happening right now in Gaza. And I felt we need to send
a funeral in the West Bank for a 17-year-old American citizen from Louisiana who traveled to the West Bank to learn about his heritage. He had been there for about a year, but unfortunately, Tawfiq
Many of the raids in the occupied West Bank have targeted refugee camps.
The last Israeli military raid in the Tulkarm refugee camp lasted for 45 hours. The army used to storm the camp armored vehicles, drones.
Okay, you know what? We're taking away all AP classes, all honors classes. And you, Cenk, you're a Muslim Turkish immigrant to this country. You're not allowed to go in them anymore. Wait, why am I being punished? I'm also...
Published by the French news outlet Le Monde show Egyptians pay between $650 and $1,200 for an exit permit. Other nationalities pay around $3,000. But Palestinians have been...
Can you give me an update on the amount of Americans number of Americans who've been killed in Gaza and the number who've been injured?
Sure. So I don't have an update on the numbers that have been injured, but
as I think we'll be deferring to Defense Counsel's representation that diplomatic immunity bars this crime.
In simple words, Gil was let out of jail without paying a penny because his defense made an argument that
first pass Palestinian security, then Israeli. If Israel allows them to cross, they'll move on to the Jordanian border. By the time their journey ends, they'll have paid around $150 US in fees to the three bodies.
But the journey starts.
No, he spit on me. He spit on me and he touched me. Because the police is always asking. Then I need a picture of his face.
Victory for Israel means annexing Gaza. The conference is expected to be attended by thousands of people, including soldiers, rabbis, extremist settlement activists, local township leaders, and most notably, dozens of members of
Judaism and Islam are guided by the lunar calendar. This is what determines, when the festivals start, when sort of the months start, when the beginning of the year starts. So
Russia did not adopt the new calendar until 1918. Of course, we use the Gregorian calendar here as well in the United States, which inherited from Britain when we broke away in 1776.
The Palestinian Christians who would say to you, we are actively being oppressed by the state of Israel. We're persecuted here. What do you say to them?
I would say, take a look at the scriptures and love them. And be a blessing in any way you can, even if you're being persecuted.
Many evangelicals believe that once Jews fully control the land, Jesus will return to earth and rapture Christians up to heaven.
To believers, it's going to be a time of ecstasy and joy and excitement and glory. But to those who do not,
this map does look unified. But in reality, the city remained completely divided. The Palestinians in the east didn't want to be a part of this new country that they had just been annexed into. So in order to cement their claim and establish
Staying in solidarity with the people of Palestine, I received notice from my company's HR department that I was being suspended. And then literally hours later, the following morning, I was terminated because my post supposedly went against
support of the boycott a felony. Violators would face a minimum penalty of $250,000, a maximum of $1 million, and up to 20 years in prison.
But since October 7th, the tiny minority of Jewish Israelis who dare disagree with their government's openly apartheidist policies towards Palestinians have found that they too live under a two-tiered system of justice. Now, only the Israeli Jews who support the efforts
by Ramadan, hostages are not home. The fighting will continue everywhere to include Rafah area. We will do so in coordinated...
You see footage of...
That's my taxpayer dollars. I'm going to bomb those kids.
I think we should kill them all, if that makes you feel better. Everybody...
As the U.S. vetoes another United Nations Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. This marks the third time Washington blocked proposals for a truce. 13 council members voted in favor.
It's the belief that Jews should have their own separate Jewish ethno-state, and it led to the creation of Israel in 1948, at the expense of the indigenous Palestinian population that lived there. Anti-Zionism challenges the very ideological basis of Israel as a nation.
Of communication has exposed at least 200 instances of systematic disinformation by Israel and at least 130 journalists who have been targeted along with their families since October 7. With Turkey as host,